Hey, welcome back to Emotional Mojo. You know, a psychologist first coined the phrase internet addiction in 1995. He meant it as a joke, but internet addiction no longer considered a laughing matter. And joining us to discuss this is Ted Gournelos, professor of communications at Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
You are so brave. I
know.
But okay, internet addiction, and it's not necessarily just internet either, right? It's kind of electronics, right? And not all psychologists are ready to call this an addiction yet. But do you think it should be termed that?
You know, I think it is. I really do think it is an addiction. You know, when you think about it, when you wake up in the middle of the night, what's the first thing you do? You know, you grab your phone.
Grab the phone.
You check your. Do you have any text messages? Send somebody email. Do you not? I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe it's just me.
Don't judge me.
I know, right? Right behind, which matches, by the way, right? But I really do think that this is a growing problem with us all, is that we can't disconnect. And if you work and you're at home, work begins to interfere with home. When you're talking to your kids, you're talking to your girlfriend or your husband or your wife, it all begins to merge together, and that can be a real problem.
I can't tell you how many times my husband and I will be home in the same room, but one's on a laptop, one's on the phone, and then jokingly he texted me once, and we literally were sitting like this next to each other, and I'm like, wow, that's bad. So it affects relationships too, right?
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. I mean, I've seen groups of kids, groups of my students sitting around playing words with friends, so Scrabble, together on their phones, even though there's a Scrabble board underneath in the librry or in the lounge.
They don't know that exists.
Yeah.
Now this is a global problem too, right? Especially in Japan, there's a term for what's going on over there.
It is. Well, it's something very, very much connected, which is called hikikomori. And basically, these are young men who've gone away to college, and they get kind of freaked out by college, which I see all the time. But they're separated from home. They go to Tokyo or whatever, and they retreat into themselves. They go and they stay in their apartments, and they lose contact with the outside world. They're on social media, they're on internet gaming sites, things like that, and they simply stop functioning.
Wow.
And the trash piles up. They can't even see people. They
They
can't
literally
go outside.
will not leave
They
for
will
months?
not leave. They'll order takeout and have it dropped off in front of their doors because they can't even see the person to drop off them.
So completely isolating.
Absolutely, completely
and you're
isolating.
a professor at Rollins College, and so you're teaching these types of ideas and concepts, but how do you do that when you also have to be with the times? I mean, you have to use computers and keep up with programming and that kind of thing. What do you do?
It's about balance. You know, it's that, you know, I have to actually make an effort to go outside or see real people or remember that my identity online is not my real identity. And, you know, when I'm teaching public relations or communications or interpersonal communications, we have to talk about this because it is a real issue and it does end up becoming addictive.
So how do you know if you have a problem? Like, where's the line?
That's a really good question because this is a really blurry line, right? Is that when you work online, and we all do, you know, you have to answer emails, things like that. You know, what happens? What happens when you cannot disconnect, or you might get fired, or that you just lose contact with your friends or your family? I think it's when you end up preferring digital media to actually seeing someone. You know, that's when it becomes a real problem.
All right. Well, you know, one solution being offered up is stirring a little bit of controversy right now. The first hospital-based internet addiction rehab in Pennsylvania. And we'll run down a couple specifics of the program. Okay, there's a 10-day program. It's for those diagnosed with severe internet addiction. There's a digital detox. So they go through 72 hours of being completely unplugged. And then there's therapy sessions and educational seminars. It costs $14,000 out of pocket.
Oh my God.
Ted, do you think there needs to be rehab? Is it that big of a problem that this should be happening?
Well, you know, I think it's like any other addiction. Rehab is important. The problem is, if you're an alcoholic, a 72-hour detox is not going to handle it. You know,
I'll take your phone away for $14,000.
Exactly.
Right.
And this is, I think, the real issue is that people, instead of dealing with this as an addiction and really thinking about it as the way in which they interact with other people and that that's a problem, they begin to just kind of push it away and say, oh, I can go to the hospital and fix it. But in many ways, the reality is that you can't escape these things, and you really have to learn to deal with these on an everyday basis. And that's going to come just like an alcoholic, from friends and from family. And maybe if it gets really bad, you might need to be institutionalized for a while. But honestly, friends and family are the ones that need to be dealing with it.
People are starting to realize that. Have you heard about that family that's living like it's the 1980s right now? They only have things that were around in the 80s, and they said their lives are so much better. The kids love it because they actually have to play. Oh yeah, and Nintendo, you know, like go in the game and stuff. Oh my gosh, Ted, thank you so much for joining us for that.